It was a regular Tuesday morning, and Sarah had just dropped her 6-year-old daughter, Emily, off at school. Sarah had always been a busy mom, managing work, errands, and taking care of her family. But the mornings with Emily were always her favorite. They would talk about everything, from the things Emily wanted to be, when she grew up, to what color she wanted her lunchbox to be that day. There was never a dull moment with her little girl, and Sarah cherished these small moments. That morning was no different. After a quick hug and a kiss on the cheek, Sarah watched as Emily skipped off towards the school gate, her small backpack bouncing against her back. Sarah waved, watching her daughter disappear into the building, feeling a familiar sense of pride. Emily was bright, friendly, and full of curiosity. She loved school, and Sarah loved how much her daughter enjoyed it. However, the peace of that morning would soon be disrupted in a way that no one could have predicted. Sarah was busy with work and errands throughout the day, but her mind kept drifting back to Emily. She couldn't help but think about how much her little girl had grown. But then, just as the clock hit 3:00 p.m., Sarah received a text message from Emily's teacher. The message simply read, "Please call me as soon as you can." At first, Sarah was a little taken aback. It was unusual for the teacher to reach out to her outside of school hours. She quickly dialed the number, her mind racing with questions. "Hello, Mrs. Taylor," Sarah said, her voice laced with curiosity and a bit of concern. "Hi, Sarah. It's Mrs. Taylor," the teacher replied. "I just wanted to let you know something interesting. Emily mentioned something today that we thought you should know." "Okay, what did she say?" Sarah asked, slightly worried but trying to keep calm. "Well, she told us that she has a twin at school," Mrs. Taylor said, her voice still light and conversational. "She said that there's another girl in her class who looks exactly like her. We thought it was just an innocent thing kids sometimes say, but we've noticed it too." "Wait," Sarah said, trying to process what she was hearing. "She has a twin. How is that possible?" "That's what we're wondering too," Mrs. Taylor continued. "We thought she might be imagining things, but the resemblance between her and this other girl is uncanny. They have the same hair, the same eyes, and their faces look very similar. It's almost as if they're twins." Sarah felt a strange sensation wash over her. She had always known Emily to be a bit of a storyteller, often coming up with wild stories about school or her favorite characters from books. But this was different. Sarah had never heard Emily talk about anything like this before, and the teacher's confirmation only added to the mystery. "Okay, thank you for telling me," Sarah said, still unsure of what to think. "I'll talk to Emily when I pick her up." As the day wore on, Sarah couldn't shake the thoughts swirling in her mind. A twin? That seemed impossible. Emily had never mentioned anything about having a twin before, and as far as Sarah knew, there had never been any talk about adoption or a long-lost sibling. She tried to reason with herself. Perhaps it was just some coincidence. Maybe the other girl resembled Emily, but surely they weren't identical twins, right? When Sarah finally picked Emily up from school, she tried to act normal, but her mind was racing with questions. As soon as Emily jumped into the car, Sarah couldn't hold it in any longer. "Emily," she began cautiously, "your teacher said you have a twin at school. Can you tell me more about that?" Emily's eyes widened as if she had been waiting for this moment. "Yes, Mom. Her name is Mia, and she's just like me. We look the same, and we even sit next to each other in class. She has brown skin and braids like me, and she's so nice. I see her every day at school." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. Mia? Was this some coincidence, or was there really a girl at Emily's school who looked just like her? She quickly glanced at her daughter, who was beaming with excitement, but Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of confusion and concern. Why had Emily never mentioned Mia before? Was it possible that this little girl really resembled her so much that Emily believed they were twins? "That's interesting, sweetheart," Sarah said, trying to stay calm. "But are you sure she's your twin?" Emily nodded vigorously. "Yes, Mom. We look the same, We both have the same face, the same eyes, and everything. I asked my teacher, and she said we do look alike. It's just so cool." Sarah was stunned, but she didn't want to upset her daughter, so she decided to let it go for the time being. They spent the rest of the evening at home, but the thought of the two girls having such an uncanny resemblance kept nagging at Sarah. As Sarah lay in bed that night, she couldn't help but think about the strange turn of events. Could Emily really have a twin? She tried to tell herself it was just a coincidence, but deep down, she felt there was more to the story. Was Emily right? Was there another child out there who looked just like her? Sarah knew that she had to get to the bottom of it. But little did she know, the next few days would uncover a much bigger mystery than she could ever have imagined. The next morning, as Sarah prepared to send Emily off to school, she made a decision. She would meet this girl, Mia. She needed to see for herself if this was just a wild story, or if something truly extraordinary was unfolding before her eyes. The next morning, Sarah couldn't shake off the strange feeling from the previous day. Emily had been so certain about her story, but Sarah wasn't sure what to believe. She had always known her daughter to have a wild imagination. But this was different. There had to be more to it than just a coincidence. Sarah decided to take action. She would speak directly to Emily's teacher to get a clearer understanding of what was really going on. As Sarah dropped Emily off at school that morning, she kissed her daughter on the cheek, her mind still swirling with questions. "Have a good day, sweetie," she said, trying to sound upbeat despite the confusion building inside her. Emily gave her a wide grin, still excited about her twin and seemingly unaware of her mother's growing concern. "I'll see you later, Mom. I'm going to see Mia again today." Sarah nodded and waved her daughter off, watching as she skipped happily toward the school gate. Her heart felt heavy, but she had made up her mind. Today, she was going to speak to Mrs. Taylor, Emily's teacher, to figure out what was really happening. Sarah arrived at the school just before lunch, her footsteps quick and purposeful. She was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery. The front office directed her to Emily's classroom, and as she entered, Mrs. Taylor was standing at the door greeting the students. When she saw Sarah, the teacher smiled and motioned for her to come inside. "Hi, Sarah. I'm so glad you could stop by. We were just talking about Emily and Mia," Mrs. Taylor said warmly, though there was a hint of curiosity in her voice. "Please, have a seat." Sarah sat down, her mind racing. She tried to remain calm, but she couldn't help the feeling that something important was about to unfold. "Mrs. Taylor, I need to know more about what Emily said. She's been talking about having a twin at school, and it's really been bothering me. I didn't know if it was just something she made up, or if there's some truth to it." Mrs. Taylor gave Sarah an understanding nod. "I can tell this is really bothering you. When Emily first mentioned it, I thought it was just one of those things kids say. But the more I watched, the more I began to notice the similarities between Emily and this new girl, Mia." Sarah's eyebrows shot up. "You've noticed it too?" "Yes," Mrs. Taylor said, her voice soft but serious. "When Mia joined our class a few weeks ago, we all noticed how similar she looked to Emily. At first, I thought it was just a coincidence. After all, there are plenty of children who resemble each other. But when Emily mentioned that Mia was her twin, it made me pause and really pay attention. There's something striking about their resemblance." Sarah was stunned. She had hoped it was all just some kind of mistake. But now, with the teacher's confirmation, she felt the weight of the situation grow heavier. "What do you mean? How similar do they look?" Mrs. Taylor paused for a moment, clearly trying to find the right words. "They both have the same dark brown eyes, the same facial structure, and even the same little dimples when they smile. It's almost like they could be sisters, but there's more. Mia is a little darker in skin tone, while Emily has fair skin, but when they stand next to each other, they just look so similar. It's uncanny, really. I've never seen anything like it." Sarah was speechless. Could it really be possible that these two girls who looked so alike were just coincidentally brought together in the same class. What were the chances of that? You're not the only one who's been noticing it, Mrs. Taylor continued. The other teachers have remarked on it too. In fact, when I spoke with some of the other staff members, they mentioned that the two of them have an uncanny connection. They often finish each other's sentences and seem to be so comfortable together. It's like they've known each other forever, even though they've only been friends for a short time. Sarah could feel her heart racing. Could this really be a coincidence, or was there something more? She felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. How could two little girls who were clearly so connected not be related in some way? Was it possible that Emily's wild story about having a twin was actually true? Is Mia adopted? Sarah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Mrs. Taylor shook her head. I don't know much about Mia's background. She's only been in our school for a few weeks, and we haven't had a lot of time to get to know her family. But I do know she doesn't have any family here. Her parents are new to the area, and she doesn't talk about her background much. Sarah's mind was spinning. This was getting more and more confusing. Mia didn't have any family in the area, and Emily had never mentioned anything about a twin sister before. How could these two girls, with such a strong resemblance, be complete strangers to each other? Thank you for telling me all this, Mrs. Taylor, Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. I don't know what to think, but I need to find out more. This is all so confusing. Mrs. Taylor nodded sympathetically. I completely understand. It's an unusual situation, and I can't even begin to imagine how you must be feeling. If you want, I can put you in touch with Mia's parents. Maybe they can help answer some of these questions. Sarah stood up, her thoughts swirling. Yes, please. I think that's the next step. I need to talk to them. I need to get to the bottom of this. As Sarah left the classroom, she felt a strange mix of excitement and anxiety. What was happening? Why were these two girls, who had never known each other, so alike? And could it really be possible that Emily had a twin? Only time, and more conversations, would reveal the truth. But Sarah knew one thing for sure. She wasn't going to rest until she got the answers. The following days passed in a blur of confusion and questions. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about what Mrs. Taylor had said. Emily's teacher, as well as the other staff members at school, had all remarked on the uncanny resemblance between her daughter and Mia. And it wasn't just their appearance. There was something deeper, an unspoken connection between the two girls. They finished each other's sentences, shared inside jokes, and were inseparable in a way that didn't make sense for children who had only met a few weeks ago. Despite all the information she had gathered, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. How could two little girls who looked so alike not be connected in some way? Could this truly just be a coincidence, or was there something more? After spending sleepless nights turning over these questions in her mind, Sarah realized that she needed to take action. There was one way to uncover the truth: a DNA test. It wasn't a decision Sarah took lightly. She knew that asking Mia's parents for such a thing could be uncomfortable, but Sarah had to know the truth. The resemblance between the two girls was more than just striking. It was overwhelming. And with Emily's firm belief that Mia was her twin, Sarah knew she couldn't ignore the possibility any longer. The next morning, Sarah picked up the phone and dialed Mia's parents' number. Her heart raced as it rang, each second feeling like an eternity. Finally, a voice on the other end of the line answered. "Hello. Hi, this is Sarah," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I'm Emily's mother. I was wondering if we could talk for a moment about something that's been on my mind lately." There was a brief pause before Mia's mother, Mrs. Jenkins, responded. "Of course, Sarah. What's on your mind?" "I know this might sound a little strange, but I've been hearing from Emily about how much she looks like Mia," Sarah began, her voice soft. "And well, I've been noticing it too. I spoke with Emily's teacher, and the staff at school have all remarked on how much the two of them resemble each other. It's honestly become something I can't ignore anymore. I was wondering if you would be open to taking a DNA test to see if there's any chance the two girls are related." The line was silent for a moment, and Sarah began to second-guess herself. Maybe she had gone too far. Maybe it was just an overreaction. But then, Mrs. Jenkins spoke. "I've thought about it too, Sarah," Mrs. Jenkins said softly. "When Maya first started at the school, I couldn't help but notice how similar she looked to Emily. I never said anything to anyone because I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things. But now, hearing that you've noticed it too, I can't deny that it's a bit uncanny." Sarah felt a wave of relief. It seemed that she wasn't alone in her thoughts. "I'm not sure what to make of all of this," she admitted. "But I think a DNA test could give us some answers. If you're open to it, I'd love to arrange it. I just need to know, for Emily's sake." Mrs. Jenkins paused, and Sarah could sense the hesitation in her voice. "I don't know, Sarah. It feels a bit strange, asking for a DNA test like this. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder too. Let me talk it over with my husband, and I'll get back to you." The conversation ended, and Sarah hung up the phone, her thoughts spinning. She felt a mix of anxiety and hope. Would Maya's parents agree to the test? Would the results finally explain everything? Or would they uncover a truth that no one was prepared for? Later that evening, Mrs. Jenkins called back, and this time, her tone was more resolved. "Sarah, we talked about it, and after considering everything, we think it's worth pursuing. If it helps answer the questions we all have, then let's do it. Let's arrange for the DNA test." Sarah's heart skipped a beat. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Jenkins," she said, her voice full of gratitude. "I know this might be uncomfortable, but I think this is the only way we'll know for sure." Within a few days, arrangements were made. The DNA test would be conducted at a local clinic, and both girls would be tested at the same time. Sarah and Mia's parents arrived together, nervous but curious about what the results might show. The clinic staff was professional and quick, taking samples from the two girls and assuring them that the process would be fast and easy. As Sarah sat in the waiting room, her hands trembled slightly, and she couldn't help but wonder what the outcome would be. Would the test confirm that Emily and Mia were indeed identical twins, separated at birth? Or would it prove to be just another wild coincidence, a case of two girls who happened to look alike but weren't connected in any meaningful way? Days later, the results finally arrived. Sarah stared at the envelope in her hand, her heart pounding in her chest. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Her eyes scanned the document, and as she read the words, she felt her breath catch in her throat. The test results confirmed what no one had expected. Emily and Mia were indeed identical twins. The reality of it hit Sarah like a ton of bricks. How could this be possible? The girls had been raised in different families, in different homes, and had never met before. Yet their DNA was a perfect match. The question of how this could have happened would take some time to figure out, but one thing was clear. The mystery that had begun with a casual remark from Emily had now uncovered a truth that no one could have predicted. Sarah felt a wave of emotions, shock, disbelief, and a deep sense of wonder. She needed to talk to Mia's parents right away. There was so much more to this story than anyone had realized, and the journey to understanding it had only just begun. The DNA results were in. Emily and Mia, the two little girls who had so quickly become inseparable at school, were indeed identical twins. The revelation left Sarah in a whirlwind of emotions. Shock, joy, and disbelief all rolled into one. How could this be possible? The idea that her daughter, Emily, had a twin sister, and one who had been living so close yet out of her reach, was something Sarah could barely comprehend. And as the realization sank in, she knew she had to share the news with Mia's parents immediately. Sarah called Mrs. Jenkins right away, her voice a mixture of excitement and nervous energy. "Mrs. Jenkins, I have the results. I can't believe it, but the DNA test confirms it. Emily and Mia are identical twins." The words felt surreal even as they left her mouth, but they were undeniably true. There was a long pause on the other end of the phone before Mrs. Jenkins spoke, her voice trembling with emotion. "Are you sure?" "Oh my goodness, this is incredible." Sarah could hear the tears in her voice, the overwhelming joy and confusion at the same time. "I don't know what to say, Sarah. I've been wondering for so long, but I never thought. I never imagined." "I know," Sarah responded softly. "I never thought it was possible either, but it's true. Maya and Emily are twins. It's amazing and so hard to believe." After a long conversation filled with tears and disbelief, both families agreed to meet. It was time to tell the girls, who had no idea what was really going on. Emily had always been so certain that Mia was her twin, but now, the truth was undeniable. The moment had come to bring them together in a way no one could have ever expected. The meeting was arranged for the following Saturday afternoon, a warm, sunny day that seemed to fit the significance of the moment. Sarah and her husband, Mark, drove to the Jenkins house, both of them overwhelmed with a mix of emotions. As they pulled up to the driveway, Sarah saw Mia and Emily through the window, playing together in the backyard. They were laughing, chasing each other around with carefree joy, as if they were simply two friends enjoying a perfect day. When the girls saw Sarah and Mark, they ran up to greet them. Emily, as usual, was grinning from ear to ear, her excitement evident. "Mom, look, Maya and I are going to play tag," she said, pulling her mother toward the backyard. But Sarah gently stopped her. "Sweetheart, there's something really important I need to talk to you about," Sarah said, her voice tender but serious. Emily, always eager to please, tilted her head in confusion. "What's wrong, Mom?" "This is something you've been saying for a while now," Sarah began, her heart heavy but full of love. "You've told me that Maya is your twin, and you've always believed that. Well, sweetheart, it's true. You and Mia really are twins. You were born at the same time, but for some reason, you were separated when you were very young. The doctors have confirmed it. You and Mia are identical twins." Emily's eyes grew wide, and for a moment, she said nothing. The news had obviously shocked her. She turned to Mia, who was standing nearby, looking equally stunned. Then, slowly, Emily walked up to Mia, took her by the hand, and whispered, "We really are twins." Mia nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "We are, Emily. I knew we were the same, but I didn't know we were really twins." The two girls stood there for a moment, holding hands, their faces filled with an almost childlike disbelief. They looked at each other as if seeing the other for the first time, as though they had just uncovered a secret that had been hidden from them for years. Mark and Sarah exchanged a glance, both parents deeply moved by the moment. It was impossible to deny the bond that was forming before their eyes. These two little girls, who had never known each other until recently, were now discovering a connection that was deeper than anyone had anticipated. Mia's parents, who had joined them in the backyard, stood off to the side, silently watching the scene unfold. Mrs. Jenkins had tears in her eyes as she looked at the two girls, now finally united after years of separation. Mr. Jenkins, who had always been a little more reserved, smiled softly, his eyes glistening with emotion. They had never imagined this day would come, the day when their daughter would find her twin sister. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the backyard, both families sat together around the patio table. The girls were still laughing and playing, running around with an energy and excitement that was contagious. Sarah and Mrs. Jenkins shared stories of their daughter's early years, how Emily had always been the curious, outgoing one, and how Mia had been more reserved, but both girls shared an innate sense of kindness and joy. "We have so much to figure out," Sarah said, her voice full of wonder. "But this is just the beginning. We need to get to know each other's families, learn about their past, and see how we can make up for lost time." "Absolutely," Mrs. Jenkins agreed. "They've missed so much, but we can give them the future they deserve. We have so much catching up to do, and I'm excited to see what's ahead for both families." As the evening drew to a close, the two families knew their lives would never be the same. They had witnessed an incredible reunion, one that was filled with love, surprise, and the deep bond of family. Emily and Mia, who had once been strangers, were now united by blood and heart, and no one could have predicted the extraordinary connection that had brought them together. The truth had been uncovered, but this was only the beginning. The two girls, who had found each other against all odds, would now grow up together, sharing everything from secrets to milestones, and most importantly, the love of two families who would forever cherish the bond between these long-lost identical twins. And so, as Sarah watched her daughter and Mia run around together, laughing, she couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude. Life had surprised them all, but in the most beautiful way. The journey was just beginning, and it was one that would be filled with love, discovery, and the joy of family.